Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Rux, I'm a Western tropical astrologer, and today we're going to be talking about the new moon in Aquarius coming up on the 9th of February. This is happening at 20 degrees 40 minutes of Aquarius, and time-wise it is taking place at 10:58 p.m. GMT time. So you can of course adjust that for your own time zone. Who is going to feel this new moon the most? Those of you who have in your natal chart planets, angles, important points such as the North Node, around 20 to 21 degrees of fixed signs. Now the fixed signs, let's recap, are Aquarius, Leo, Taurus, and Scorpio. Those of you who have in your natal chart planets or angles around 20 to 21 degrees of Gemini, Libra, Aries, and Sagittarius, you are going to like this new moon the most. Why? Because the new moon is going to make a harmonious aspect. It's going to form a harmonious aspect with your natal planetary placements or with your natal astrological angles. Suppose you have no clue what I'm talking about. Angles, natal chart, planets, or natal planets. What I'm referring to right now is your astrological birth chart, the map of the sky at the time when you were born. How can you get a hold of that? How can you have that in your possession? Very simple, very easy, very straightforward. Use Google. How? You can Google online natal chart generator or online birth chart generator. Two of my favorite free resources on the internet are astro.com and astro-seek.com. And you can go and you can maybe even Google these two websites. They generate your natal chart for free. Your blueprint of the sky at the time when you were born. All you need for that, however, because you do need to input a few important details. All you need for that is your date, time, and place of birth. The time of birth is very, 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 very important in order to have an accurate birth chart, in order to generate an accurate birth chart. And once you input your birthday details into astro-seek.com or astro.com, you're gonna see that there's this wheel that is being generated. I like to call it a pie. That is your birth chart. And within that pie, there are some symbols. You're gonna see a small symbol that looks like the moon, a small symbol like a circle with a dot inside of it. Those are the symbols for two of the planets in your natal chart. In astrology, we work with 10 planets in modern astrology. You're gonna see that next to those symbols, next to the symbols of the planets, there are some numbers. Those are the degrees and the minutes of your planetary placements, and also of the degrees and the minutes of your angles, such as the ascendant and the midheaven. So when you listen to these general horoscopes, I really want to stress out that if you can write down or if you can have your natal chart printed and then check to see, okay, Rux mentioned fixed signs, Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, Aquarius, fixed signs with planets around 20 degrees, they're going to feel this astrological event the most. You can basically take away from these types of general forecasts the information that is most likely going to impact you the most, that is likely to be the most influential, because we are not going to feel every single astrological event in the sky. Not everything speaks to us. Not every new moon, not every full moon, not every astrological transit. I repeat, not everything speaks to us. What does speak to us, astrologically speaking, is the event or the events that activate, I like to call them, that trigger our own natal chart, our own birth chart placements. So get a hold of your natal chart. As I said, it's free. You just need to know your date, time, and place of birth. Maybe print it or just kind of like screenshot it, save it on your phone, and then look at the small kind of like numbers next to the planetary symbols and take note of them. They are super, 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 super important. I realize I've gotten super geeky. I don't know what's happening with me. It's probably the new moon in Aquarius. Aquarius is a fixed air sign. It doesn't get geekier than Aquarius. That doesn't mean that all Aquarians are geeks, although if you called me an Aquarius and a geek, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. I think being a geek is the ultimate compliment. It means you know your stuff and you're also super passionate about it and you are willing to go deep and master something or investigate something or research something super in depth. And I think that is beautiful. But again, I repeat, that is the sun in Aquarius in me speaking. New moon in Aquarius. Before we dive into the astrology of the actual new moon, by the way, you are likely to feel this also in the 3 days before the 9th of February and the 3 days after. The new moon is symbolic of a new beginning, of a fresh start. Let me share a couple of things quickly. So those of you who want to work with me, those of you who want to book personal astrology readings with me, my books are now open, so I am taking clients, I am taking consultations, I am taking bookings via my website. They were closed for most of January, my books, because I was fully booked until the end of February. When I'm filming this, I am taking bookings for the second half of March. So just in case you're wondering how much you have to wait to get on the calendar, how much you have to wait for a consultation. As I said, I'm filming this literally at the end of January, and I'm taking bookings when I'm filming this for the second half of March. So the waiting time is around a month to a month and a half. How can you find me? Where can you purchase my services? Where can you book your personal reading? On my website, which is writteninthestars-astrology.com. I repeat, writteninthestars-astrology.com. I'm also going to obviously leave a link in the description of the video as well as in the pinned comment. In the pinned comment section, you're going to see a link to my website, to the first-time client consultation service, and also the timestamps for this video in case you just want to jump straight to the update for your own zodiac sign. Those of you who haven't worked with me before, the service to go for is the 1 hour, 15 minutes Zoom consultation on my website. Those of you who are existing clients, if we have been working together, there's 2 additional options for you. The 30 minutes follow-up consultation, in which we can cover specific questions, or if you would like to dive into one particular area of interest, let's say career, for example, that is the option for you. Also, probably one of the most popular services with my clients is the year ahead forecast. This has a preferential rate for existing clients. It is 1 hour long, and we basically look at the 12 months ahead. It doesn't matter when you book the year ahead forecast. You can book it, I don't know, in July, and we're going to look at the 12 months ahead. It is a fabulous tool to help you understand what are the themes for the year ahead, how you can make the most of them, how you can align yourselves with the cosmos, how you can take advantage of opportunities, how you can best prepare for potential challenges, what the nature of those challenges is likely to be, when to expect them. I think I read somewhere in a book that one of the biggest sources of stress for people is not knowing, uncertainty. And I also want to flag that astrology doesn't predict concrete manifestation. It is symbolically and archetypally predictive. So it is predictive at an energetic and at a symbolic level. For example, let's say someone is experiencing a tense Saturn transit to their Venus. So we can expect maybe some obstacles to be overcome, some sense of difficulty in a specific relationship. Obviously, we need to know in which houses this is happening. We need to know what houses Saturn and Venus rule in that person's natal chart and so on. But knowing that this is coming, we are less likely to freak out. We are much more likely to understand in which area, let's say, the relationship might require effort and reworking and restructuring and reorganizing, or where we need to maybe establish better rules or better boundaries within the relationship. So when things are actually happening in real life, regardless of the nature of the obstacles, we are prepared. We saw this coming. We have a good understanding of the tools that we can use to overcome the obstacle. So yeah, that's why I believe astrology is such such an invaluable tool. And I also want to stress something out, folks. You've probably heard me say this in the past. Astrology doesn't predict concrete manifestation. It doesn't predict tangible material manifestation because we have free will. Guess what? Yes, we do. We do. Sorry, this is my sarcasm kicking in. I know it is such a philosophical debate. It's like, do we have a choice? Do we not have a choice? Do we have a choice? Do we not have a choice? Oh my God, of course we do. We always have a choice. And even when we feel trapped, even when we feel imprisoned, even when we feel kind of like shoved into a corner, we always have a choice. Are we, this is going to sound really bad. But hey, it's Aquarius season. I can be controversial, right? I can be polarizing for a little bit. I do my best not, I really try so hard not to be polarizing, but sometimes it is what it is. We live in a polarized reality. So going back to, even when you're shoved into a corner, there is a choice, but we have to be open-minded enough and broad-minded enough to see that choice. And let's face it, we're all pretty much living in our own bubbles. So we're all pretty narrow-minded to a certain extent. I mean, everyone, let's just face it. I mean, we filter reality through the lens of our own prior experiences, through our inner programming, through the cultural conditioning and the education that was kind of like imprinted upon us and so on. And sometimes it's very useful to have something from the outside, a detached perspective, an objective perspective. Even if it's not fully objective, because obviously we're humans, it helps to see things from a different angle, because that helps us make choices, right? And this is where I see astrology coming in. Going back to being shoved into a corner, like why are we in this corner? Free will. We can decide to give up. We can decide to submit. We can decide to, throw a punch, metaphorically speaking, of course. Which is why the astrology could tell us, listen, you might feel a bit stuck. You might feel a little bit restricted. You might feel a bit kind of caught up in between two very unpleasant, choices or options. But the reason why astrology doesn't tell us exactly how things are going to turn out is because it cannot predict our free will. It cannot predict how we are going to react to that particular situation. Sure, astrology is very good at helping us understand maybe the nuances of our personality, our inclinations, our affinities, and so on. But just because we have an inclination to act in a certain direction doesn't mean we will always act in that way. I mean, I, for one, have acted... maybe it sounds, bad to speak about myself, but it's just an example. In many cases in my life, in many situations, I consciously and intentionally chose to act out of character because I considered it to be the better choice, even though my nature, my comfort zone, my instinct would have, or let's say my instinctive reaction would have been of a certain type. Consciously, I chose to do things differently. As I said, even if it was out of character, and it actually paid off several times. So just as a bit of an FYI. So we have free will. Remember that, folks. Nothing is going to take that away from us. And I find it quite funny to say this. Of course, this is also I believe it's kind of like a Western versus Eastern kind of like philosophical tradition and approach to life. I have a Western philosophical approach to life. I will give you that. So going back to the astrology. Side note, really long sidebar today, but it is what it is. The astrology of this new moon coming up on the 9th of February. It's a new moon in a fixed sign. in a fixed air sign. So we can expect some sort of a new beginning in various different sectors of our life, depending on your, especially on your ascendant, upon your rising sign. Of course, we're gonna look at the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs. It's a new moon that involves principles, ideas, a new beginning, aligned with a certain set of principles, a certain set of ideas. I'm gonna say even a certain kind of like attachment to a specific set of principles and ideas. A new moon that puts the spotlight on topics such as, very Aquarian topics, topics such as friendship, communities, tribes, organizations, the digital world, the digital environment. Technology in general is quite Uranian and Aquarian in nature. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler. Aquarius is also a sign very much interested in the laws that govern groups of people, which is why Aquarius is a very political sign, by the way. So we might see some kind of like big fresh starts at a political level, some heads rolling, metaphorically speaking, of course. Maybe also some sort of like separations on the political sphere. Let's call them divorces on the political sphere. So certain alliances, certain kind of like mergers may no longer be working on the political sphere. This new moon also puts the spotlight on technology, the digital world, science, scientific breakthroughs, and the idea of innovation and progress in general. Themes such as independence, freedom, and equality. I'm thinking obviously of the French motto, égalité, what is it? Égalité, fraternité, liberté. Oh my gosh, I have to Google this. Égalité, fraternité. Liberté, égalité, fraternité. The national motto. Oh, I didn't know this. It's the national motto of France and the Republic of Haiti. Very Aquarian, super Aquarian. I mean, I'm basically Googling. In January, probably one of the biggest pieces of news that came out was coming from France, at least here in Europe, tractors blocking major roads in Europe as farmers began siege of Paris. French farmers were moving hundreds of tractors into place as a blockade of major roads, termed the Siege of Paris, was kind of like getting underway. Lots of demonstrations taking place across the country in France as part of continuing protests against falling incomes, rising bureaucracy, and competition from imports. Protests were also being held in Belgium and Germany, where tractors were blocking routes leading to Hamburg's port area. Wow. Okay, so very Aquarian. Groups of people, masses of people, communities, pushing for a fresh start, pushing for a change, pushing for innovation, pushing for some sort of revolution. And I don't use that word lightly, the word revolution. Now, why do I believe that this new beginning does have a very strong revolutionary taste to it? This new moon has a very strong revolutionary taste to it. Because the new moon is squaring Uranus. It's forming a tense aspect with Uranus, planet of revolution, of disruption, of rebellion, but also of freedom and authenticity. So, fresh start for communities of people involving some sort of revolution and innovation and disruption of the status quo. Aquarius, Uranus, both very kind of like anti-status quo, anti-authority. The new moon is forming a tense aspect with Uranus and Taurus. Taurus is the sign of food, construction, nutrition, the economy, stability. So a new beginning that is kind of like bringing with it, that is pointing towards a massive shakeup that also impacts sectors such as the food industry, the construction industry, for example. We have to mention tech companies, right? Because both Aquarius and Uranus are very strongly aligned with technology. Some sort of disruption at the very kind of like top level for certain tech companies. Actually, when I was preparing to film today, I was reading this piece of news on the BBC. And I'm filming this on the 31st of January, just as an FYI. So, 5 CEOs from major tech companies testifying at a Senate hearing about the protection of children from online exploitation. At the time when I was reading this piece of news, Mark Zuckerberg was testifying. So, probably some sort of new approach that tech companies are bringing to the table in regards to online communities, not necessarily because they, I'm just going to say it, not necessarily because they want it, but because if they don't do things differently, they're either in danger of breaking the law, or they are in danger in terms of losing some of their profits, or in terms of being fined. Are we likely to see some fines in the tech space? Yes, absolutely. I've also been reading quite a bit in January, and I do believe this might actually continue in February, about significant layoffs. There might be more to come. There might be more to come, and I am looking at these kind of like tech giants, folks. So it is a possibility. Uranus, which is very, very strongly involved in this new moon, likes to break away from things. It likes to cut loose. It is very connected with the idea of separation and doing things differently. If I were to summarize the new moon, or the theme of the new moon, it would be a disruptive new beginning that requires looking into the future, planning for a different, innovative approach to money, security, food, and the economic climate. Are we likely to see some scientific breakthroughs at the time of this new moon? Yes, definitely. News of scientific breakthroughs, but probably there's something about this piece of news that is quite shocking and controversial. Again, very Uranian. Uranus is in the mix. I also want to flag, however, that Saturn, which is the ruler of the new moon, is in Pisces, forming a nice aspect to Jupiter in Taurus. So even though this new moon does point towards some sort of break, rupture, independence, disruption, shaking of the status quo, I do see that in the long term, this is likely to lead to increased security and stability, and the rules that are being enforced can be both implemented and upheld over time, I'd say. So not all when people hear words like disruption and revolution and shock and controversy, of course, it's human nature to try to control things, and we can only control what we know. So what we don't know, we can be quite fazed by it. But see beyond. I urge you folks to see beyond the apparent, shocking, maybe wave of news that is coming up at the time of this new moon. To see that actually there's something that is pointing towards increased stability coming after this new moon. So that is my huge, very, very, very long intro. I don't know. I just went on a tangent there. So we're going to go, of course, into the updates for each of the 12 zodiac signs. Before we do that, I really want to urge you folks to listen to the update for your rising sign, for your ascendant. Why? Because that is the closest thing that you can get to a personal astrology reading. The ascendant, the rising sign, is where kind of like we enter into the world, and all the other life sectors in our chart, all the other various kind of like aspects of our life, such as relationships, career, they're kind of like organized based off of the ascendant. The ascendant is the beginning of things. The ascendant is where we enter, astrologically speaking, where we incarnate into life. The ascendant is also very representative of our physical body, of how we come across into the world, and so on. But I'm not gonna get even more into the geeky stuff. Stay tuned for geekiness.com. please listen to the update for your rising sign. That is just my recommendation. I know some people say, oh, should we listen to the update for the moon sign? I don't necessarily recommend it. If you don't know your rising sign, maybe just listen to the update for your sun sign, folks. That is how I work. Everyone, however, is free to work however they please. Also, another technical detail, because I know people are becoming super technical about astrology, which I actually love. I love it. People are starting to like read, to dive into their astrology. I am a firm believer that astrology is for everyone and it can help everyone. No matter what stage of life they're at, no matter where they come from, no matter where they're headed, where they're going, it can be a fabulous tool, a fabulous language for understanding how the world works. It's for everyone. So people are saying, Rux, what house system are you using? Well, I am using the whole sign house system. Just in case you're using something else, maybe you're using Placidus, maybe you're using equal houses. I actually studied with equal houses. I also kind of like started learning astrology from my mentor, from my first mentor, using Placidus. And then when I went into school for astrology, I studied using equal houses. So it's been a journey, but I stopped at whole sign houses just because in my experience, I have found it to work best, especially when it comes to forecasting. That is my experience. I'm just one human. You use whatever you want, but in case you're wondering, what on earth is Rux using in these videos? Without further ado, Aries suns and Aries risings. New moon in Aquarius, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. What is going on here? New beginning, my lovely Aries. When it comes to setting goals for the future, but also when it comes to the groups, the organizations, the communities that you are a part of. It looks like you may need to set new goals for the future financially. It looks like they are probably quite, how should I say, unaligned, to put it this way, with your current way of spending money or with your current budget. So these goals that you've got seem to require you to reevaluate your budget, Aries. You may need to spend less, you may need to save more, you may need to remove certain expenses from your life. Maybe, I'm gonna say it, maybe you need to actually spend less time with certain people, hang out less with certain people. You might know who they are. If you have certain friends or if you're part of certain groups which contribute to you spending too much, to contribute to you overspending, then you might decide, you know what, I'm going to socialize less just until I hit my goals, just until I hit my targets. There is a possibility that you might be saying goodbye to a friend, Aries. Not because there's anything wrong with the friendship, not because there's anything wrong with the relationship, but maybe they are leaving somewhere. I mean, maybe they're moving to a different country. Maybe you're work buddies and they're getting a new job. So there could be a sense of saying goodbye to a friend. There's also a possibility that you could be entering into a new group of people around this time. You could be entering into a new community. It could be a community that has a certain, maybe kind of like spiritual set of preoccupations, or a community that is working on the same things that you're working on from an emotional and from a mental health perspective, Aries. So that's where I see some sort of like common goal, common thread. Great time to set intentions for the future, great time to set new goals for the future, and great time to ask yourselves, Aries, who do I need to surround myself with, and what communities do I need to be active within in order to accomplish these goals? My dear Taurians, Taurus suns and Taurus risings, new moon in Aquarius, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This is putting the spotlight, Taurus, on your career path. Okay, this is big. I feel like some of you Taurians could be stepping into a new industry, could be saying yes to a new position, a position professionally that is very, very different maybe from what you've been doing so far. There could also be some sort of a fresh start from a professional standpoint that maybe requires you to change, to improve, to alter in some shape or form the way that you come across, the way that you interact with people, maybe even the way that you present yourselves into the world. Let's say you are accepting like a very, I don't know, prestigious position, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I can't just kind of like show up on camera, on Zoom calls in my hoodie. I need to put on a shirt. And that is just a very kind of like basic, simple example. But essentially, whatever new kind of like role you're stepping into professionally, or it doesn't necessarily have to be professional. It could be a new role in terms of your status in the world. So maybe you're becoming a parent. Maybe you are being presented as someone's partner. It feels like you might need to part ways in some shape or form with an old aspect of yourselves, Taurus, and kind of like learn to navigate maybe the circles that you're in, learn to navigate the people that you're going to hang out with a little bit differently, with a softer approach, with a gentler approach, with a less kind of like revolutionary approach. There is a possibility that new leadership might be coming into your company, into your kind of like professional life. Once again, it could be something that maybe is initially a little bit shocking, a little bit disruptive because you didn't see this coming. However, if you tap into your emotional intelligence, if you also tap into your ability to make people feel stable and safe and calm, I'd say you can navigate this, Taurus, very, very, very easy. Also, if you are looking to step into a new career or into a new sector, or into a new industry, Taurians, this is the time when you may decide to kind of like share this with the world, and also decide to join a community, join a group of people, connect with the right individuals that can help you in this new career direction. Geminis, Gemini suns and Gemini risings. New moon, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after in your 9th house. Geminis, this is a fantastic time to set intentions and to kick off a new chapter in terms of higher education, in terms of your academic path, in terms of your connection with foreign lands and foreign countries. So for example, if you want to apply for visas, residency, and so on, kick it off. I mean, you might have to, potentially. There could be some elements that push you to do this, that maybe give you a little bit of a nudge to do this. Maybe some elements connected with your career. I don't know, maybe you're receiving a promotion, or you're thinking of incorporating a company, and you realize, oh my God, it's going to be a lot easier, or it's going to be a lot better if I apply for citizenship. I'm going to have certain benefits. So it can be a fresh start in connection with your time spent abroad, or your interaction with foreign lands and foreign countries. This can also be a time when you decide to cut yourselves loose, Geminis, from a mentor, a guide, a teacher in some shape or form, and maybe go in a completely different direction. Maybe follow someone else's teachings, maybe follow someone else's philosophy. I want to call this new moon a belief system and a philosophical aha moment, a breakthrough in some shape or form. It feels like you are having a revelation and probably deciding to act differently from a belief system perspective when it comes to your career path and your approach to career and profession in general. So you might decide to play it smarter. You might decide to remove yourselves, Geminis, from the company of the people that are not supportive of your long-term goals career-wise. So some sort of a change, of a disruption in terms of your, as I said, your philosophical and maybe even spiritual approach to life. This new moon actually seems to benefit you career-wise, Geminis. I like it, but it also seems to kind of like shake things up a little bit, maybe in terms of involving more travel, or involving you dealing with people from foreign lands and foreign countries and different cultures. So it's benefiting you, but there's also an element of the unexpected. Cancerians, Cancer suns and Cancer risings. This new moon in Aquarius on the 9th of February is happening in your 8th house. It's going to be active also the 3 days before and the 3 days after. Saturn, which is the ruler of the new moon, is going to be in your 9th house of legal matters, traveling, and it's going to sextile Jupiter. A few things here. Fresh start, a new beginning, a time to set intentions, and a time to approach things differently when it comes to investments, other people's money, other people's resources, shared assets, shared resources, for example, joint bank accounts that you might have together with a partner. It is time to do things differently in some shape or form in one of these sectors in your life, Cancerians. There's a reset that you're getting from the universe in this particular sector. So let's say if you, together with your partner, have some specific long-term goals that involve joint assets and joint resources, now is the time to sit down and to say, okay, how are we going to do things differently? Let's set some rules in place. Let's set some targets. Let's maybe remove some old approaches or some old goals and targets that are not doable. And let's kind of work with what we've got. Cancerians who are in a relationship, this new moon can also put the spotlight on your partner's finances. Maybe your partner is getting a new source of income in, or there's some sort of disruption in their financial situation. If your partner, for whatever reason, is parting ways with a source of income, so let's say they are resigning, I would not worry and I would not stress out, just because it does look like this is making room with Saturn nicely aspecting Jupiter. This is making room for better pay. This is making room for a more fulfilling source of income. New approach, Cancerians. This new one seems to be bringing with it a new approach also when it comes to some of the topics that you might have been afraid of, or you might have been scared of, or that might have generated crisis in the past. I feel like you are approaching them differently, with a clearer mind, with a more detached mental approach, more objectively, more imaginatively, potentially. There's this sort of like coolness about Aquarius. Cool, calm, composed, and collected, and kind of like detached. And it feels like you have the ability to look dead in the face at some of your old fears and old sources of crisis and anxiety and say, you know what? I've got the benefit of experience. I've got the benefit of knowing that everything is going to pass. I've got the benefit of knowing that I'm capable of overcoming anything that could kind of like throw my life into chaos. I like it. I like it. A new financial partnership is also possible to come into your life around this time, Cancerians. If it does come into your life, my big recommendation is to nail down the legal details and to take your time to nail them down, to not rush. That's just my piece of advice for you. Leo suns and Leo risings, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. New moon in your house of relationships. Okay, this is a big one. So those of you who are single, you can meet someone who has the potential to turn into a long-term partner. At the same time, it could be someone that is shocking, different, unconventional, unexpected, and if you are to take them out into the world, you might be a little bit apprehensive, just because people might look at you and say, who is this person? And I never thought they were your type. You might also make some sort of public announcement about your relationship status around this time. That could be, as I said, maybe unexpected, shocking, a surprise to the outside world. New relationship. There is a possibility of a new relationship starting to take shape also in the professional sector, but it may feel like it's taking you away from your previous career path, or maybe it's asking you to kind of like derail your existing career path, and it could be something that you might need to do for the long term. So if you decide to say yes to this new business partnership, I would take the time to think it through, essentially, because it could be for the long term. You can benefit from it, don't get me wrong, but it does seem to be kind of like taking your life in a new direction. You might also be resetting your relationship with a figure of authority. In what sense? You might decide to, I don't know, say goodbye to them. You might decide that you no longer want to work with them. You might, I don't know, ask for your manager to be changed or something like that. Not bad. On the contrary, I do believe that if you're asking for some sort of a business relationship to be reset, it might actually bring a lot more emotional and inner peace, Leos. Virgo suns and Virgo risings. 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. We've got a new one in your 6th house. new beginning job-wise or health-wise, my lovely Virgos. If you are on the lookout for a job, this is it. The new moon can bring an opportunity your way. It doesn't mean that you don't need to kind of like do the work, or that you shouldn't keep doing the work to apply for the job and so on. So when I say the universe is bringing this to you, the universe many times works through us. It is not this sort of like ethereal kind of intangible thing that sends us stuff in a basket. No, the universe, like, we are part of the universe, right? So the universe can work through us. So if you're on the lookout for a job, new fresh start, new beginning, job-wise, new opportunity. It could be, however, something that is quite different to maybe what you've been doing so far. If you're not on the lookout for a new job, there could be some sort of like disruption and changes in terms of team and team structure. So you might be working with new people. Some people could be leaving. You might start working with maybe people from a different culture, from a different country. Your day-to-day work might also involve maybe traveling, or maybe having to readjust your day-to-day schedule. Maybe also having to start building relationships with some people that maybe, I want to say, maybe you ran away from, or maybe you felt like you had nothing in common with. You might also need to start learning how to utilize some new tools, new tactics, new strategies to do your job. If you need help, do not hesitate to ask for help, to ask for support, because you are probably, I mean, very, very, very likely going to get it from colleagues, from partners, from even like your personal kind of like life partner. This new moon can also bring a fresh start in terms of your approach to health. New habits, health-wise, new health-related routine, and a new beginning in terms of your mentality and your kind of like philosophical principles and your belief system when it comes to health. You might have a little bit of an epiphany at the time of this new moon and realize that what you used to believe about health is actually not working for you, or what you used to think was healthy is maybe detrimental health-wise. A lot of changes that you're going to be making, Virgos, health-wise, if you ask me, in terms of habits, routines, with Pluto in your house of health for the next 2 decades. You might eliminate certain habits. You might completely change your approach. But there's something very, very important that you need to take into account. It's an air sign. So a lot of change seems to come from the mind and from kind of like mentalities, beliefs, principles, and so on. You might also be joining a new health focused community around this time, my dear Virgos, to help you accomplish your long-term goals health-wise. You might also welcome like a helper, a coach, a guide, a consultant health-wise, and they are probably going to blow your mind in the best of ways with their approach. But feel prepared to be challenged on how you used to do things health-wise, because it's probably not gonna work moving forward, and you might realize the ways in which you were wrong, Virgos. Libras, Libra suns and Libra risings. 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. New one in the 5th house. Libras, I have to say, if there is, especially Libra risings, if there is one sign who can experience sudden, unexpected news of pregnancy, it is you. Of course, some of you may not want to have kids, or not be in that stage of life. If you have kids already, then there can be some sort of like shocking, unexpected, but also exciting news about your children. It could have something to do with them having kids, or it could have something to do with their work, with their job. Maybe all of a sudden they're telling you, I have resigned and I'm gonna go work in a completely different industry. So at least one of your children could be going through a fresh start, could be experiencing some sort of a fresh start that you didn't necessarily see coming, that you might kind of like look at and say, are you sure about that? This is really shaking up your life. But ultimately it does seem to be conducive to health in their lives, my lovely Libras. Fresh start and new beginning also in terms of how you have fun. Some of you might discover a new hobby. Some of you might feel tempted to like experiment and try out new things in terms of passions and hobbies. Some of you might also discover a new way of expressing yourselves creatively. Or maybe you might feel pushed or nudged to find different modes of creative expression, especially in a work environment. Don't be afraid if that is the case, because you might be a little bit stressed. You're like, oh, this is unknown territory. This is alien territory. Don't be stressed, because you are going to make it work. Saturn, the ruler of the new moon, is nicely aspected to Jupiter, so some transformation is actually going to be quite beneficial and quite productive in your work. Some of you could also, I am gonna say it, fall in love out of nowhere, out of the blue. Could this be very disruptive? Could it be unexpected? Could it be with someone from work or someone who you have some sort of a professional connection with, or a health-related connection? Let's say you go to the same gym together. Very possible. Very, very, very possible. I mean, Libras, you're going to be overall, your sign is nicely aspected by the new moon, so I do believe you're going to like this new moon. But there is an element of the shocking and of the unexpected. One element of the shocking and the unexpected could also be how much money you're spending on your passions and hobbies, Libra. And you might realize, listen, I should not get into debt for this. So maybe I need to kind of like restrict some of my spending, or maybe you just kind of like need to be a little bit more mindful of how much you spend and how much it is costing you to have fun. Scorpio suns and Scorpio risings. New moon in Aquarius, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. A new beginning, a time to initiate a new chapter, Scorpios, when it comes to your home life or family life, or both. Some of you could be moving into a new home. Some of you could be putting your house on the market. Some of you could also be experiencing a sudden, random, unexpected fresh start in terms of children. It could be like a surprise pregnancy, but it could also be some sort of a surprise that your child brings to your attention that you don't necessarily know initially what to do with it. For example, I don't know. This is a little bit of a random example. Let's say that in your family, there aren't that many people with artistic inclinations, right? And then your child comes in and says, you know what? I want to do ballet. I want to really become really good at ballet and take ballet classes. And it could just come in as like, what is this about? Like, no one does ballet in the family, in our family. But that doesn't mean that you need to say no to it. It could just be something that you didn't see coming. I do feel like you might need, especially for those of you who are in a relationship, you might need to do things differently at home because something isn't working for a partner. And a partner maybe needs you to be a little bit more accepting and accommodating. You might also, however, have some sort of like news to deliver to a partner connected with home life, family life, or children that the partner didn't see coming. However, they are probably going to be quite understanding, even if initially it might feel like a shock. It's like, oh, so now you want to move across the country, or now you want to, like, I don't know, sell this house, and why is that? I didn't see it coming. But even though, as I said, initially it could be a shock, it doesn't mean that it's going to stay like that. They are probably going to come around. Just be patient, give them emotional reassurance. help them make a plan to ensure stability, and as I said, they are probably going to come around. Some Scorpios who are in a relationship might also experience their partner giving up on their job at this time. FYI. Sagittarius suns and Sagittarius risings. New moon, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after, in your third house. Okay, Sagittarians, are you buying a new car? Are you selling a car? Are you starting a new commute? A fresh start involving transportation, involving your commute potentially. I do believe you might need a new means of transportation, or I do believe you might need to be flexible in terms of your existing roads and do you own any roads, my apologies, Sagittarius? So I do need you. I do want to say that you might need to be flexible when it comes to your commute and any sort of like trips that you need to take on the road in general in life. Sorry, I'm just like sometimes overly enthusiastic and I say things that make no sense. So Let's say that your boss is asking you to come into the office a lot more, for instance. That would be a fresh start. Let's say you are deciding to no longer drive into work. You're deciding that you are going to cycle because, I don't know, there's like pots in the road, and gas is expensive, and so on. Let's say you decide to no longer take the train into work because there are strikes all the time. So you might need to find a new mode of transportation, or maybe even a new route, transportation wise. You might also need to replace something in your car, bike, or preferred means of transportation. Just saying, especially something connected with electricity, or some sort of like techie piece. I am not a mechanic. I know nothing about cars. If my husband were kind of like listening what I'm saying, he's passionate about cars, he would probably laugh his socks off. But yeah, something might break in your car. And it might need to be replaced. So just for you to be aware of it. It doesn't mean that you can't fix it or that you can't replace it. Most certainly you can, but FYI. Some of you may start learning something new around this time. It could be something new that you need to learn. Why? For work-related purposes. A new tool, a new language, a new way of presenting things, a new way of cooperating and collaborating with colleagues. New kind of like a new way maybe also to utilize your mind in a work environment. I'd say you might not be fully 100% excited about this. You might have your reservations, my lovely Sagittarians, but that doesn't mean that you're not going to master this new tool, this new language, this new aspect of your work. There could also be some big news about your colleagues, your work colleagues. Some of them are leaving, disruption in the team. I repeat, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to make things work. You probably will make things work, but just saying. Initially it could come as a little bit of a shock because you didn't expect it. There can also be news about siblings coming up, Sagittarians, something connected with their home, family, and living situation. Maybe they are planning to get married. Maybe they're planning to relocate. Maybe they're planning to expand the family. So it can be a combination of multiple things. This is also an opportunity for you to start fresh in terms of the way that you communicate and in terms of the dynamic that you've got with certain family members. If something hasn't been working for you so far, then this is the perfect time to say, listen, this mode of operation isn't working for me. So let's say, I don't know, like a parent calls you all the time and you are really stressed out because you don't like to talk on the phone. Maybe just let them know, listen, if I don't respond straight away, or if there's something going on, maybe just message me first and then I'm gonna call you when I can. So it can be like a really like basic functional thing. Capricorn suns and Capricorn risings. 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after, a new moon in your second house. I love this. What do I like about this? So I like about it that it can bring a new source of income, Capricorn. It can also bring, I dare say it is likely to bring a raise, this new moon. However, it might bring a raise by you first letting go of a source of income. This new moon can also bring an increase in the amount of money that you've got available. Maybe also because you decide to give up on something that used to be fun and enjoyable for you, and now you realize that it's no longer working for you. So let's say that you, just an example, that you used to spend a lot of money going out dancing, going to nightclubs. And you realize, you know what, I used to like this back in the day, but now it's just not cutting it for me. So you might say, I'm just not going to do it anymore, or I'm just going to do it very infrequently. And you might find yourselves, Capricorns, with more cash, more available income to utilize for the things that actually means something for you right now, or maybe to kind of like channel some of that money towards children, potentially, for those of you who have kids. So that is a possibility. A fresh start in terms of budget, so you might be budgeting in a different way, also maybe because you've got different goals. Different goals may be connected with children, Capricorns, but maybe also different goals connected with your education, for example, your long-term plans financially. So do not be afraid to kind of like mercilessly remove certain expenses from your life, because that is going to help you achieve what really means something for you. And you might decide to invest more in yourselves as well as a result. Also a new beginning and a fresh start in terms of what is actually important to you and what you really value, what you truly value, Capricorns. You might surprise yourselves. You might kind of like do a little bit of a contemplation exercise, and I actually recommend to everyone that they do this sort of like contemplation exercise at the time of this new moon. Think about what you really value and think about how these things might have changed over time, and adjust your budget, expenses, and approach to life accordingly. Aquarius, my Aquarius brothers and sisters, I'm an Aquarius sun. New moon, 9th of February in our first house. I mean, for you guys, because for you guys, folks, everyone, for me, this is happening in my 8th house because I'm a Cancer rising. This new moon is making a tense aspect to Uranus, but Saturn, the ruler of the new moon, is nicely aspecting Jupiter. Oh, I like this. So, fresh start and new beginning, that could be quite shocking to the outside world, maybe quite shocking to parents potentially, maybe quite shocking to family members, maybe quite shocking also to friends. New beginning, Aquarius, when it comes to your long-term goals and plans, home-wise, family-wise, and living situation-wise. You might make the announcement to the outside world that you plan to, I don't know, move to a different city, relocate, move to a different country. You might also realize, it could be a personal epiphany. This is a time of very significant personal epiphanies, Aquarius. You could realize that you no longer want to live in the place that you have lived in, or in the city, in the maybe even in the country that you have lived in. What are you going to do? I feel like you're probably going to start taking action from a financial perspective. Maybe start kind of like saving money. Maybe start making financial kind of like plans as to how you can reset your life, because you have realized you need a fresh start. You need a new beginning in terms of home and living situation. Some of you could be saying goodbye to a home around this time, especially those of you maybe who have been living with parents. I do believe that you're probably in a good position, Aquarians, to have your own place, or to put money towards your own place. You do seem to be in a stable place, in a stable position, materially and financially. And this new moon also puts the spotlight on who you want to become moving forward, Aquarius. I know it's a cliche, new year, new you, but for Aquarians, for the next 2 decades, Pluto is, the transit of Pluto is very, 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 very supportive of a death and rebirth. And I'm not saying this lightly. I know it's such a cliche to throw this about, death, rebirth, metaphorically speaking, right? But truly, Aquarians, you're going to be reinventing yourselves. Ask yourselves, how is it that you want to cut yourselves free and loose and separate yourselves from your roots, your ancestry, and your past, in terms of changing the narrative, and in terms of changing your life direction, in terms of liberating yourselves from family karma, potentially. So how do you want to assert yourselves and stand out as a separate individual, not as someone who kind of like abides by or complies to the family norms, rules, traditions, and expectations? Is that likely to be shocking to the outside world when you kind of like convey it to them, when you share your decision with them? Yes, possibly. Maybe parents or family members may not necessarily understand it to start with, but you are really kind of like stepping into your authentic selves, and you're asserting your independence and freedom and originality. And that means that you are your own person, Aquarius. It means that also sometimes you need to cut yourselves free and loose from the tight grip of the past and of the family. That doesn't mean that you're not going to talk to them, or that you won't have like a good relationship with them moving forward, but there might also need to be this kind of like maybe like physical separation, or this sort of like distance, so that you can fully step into your own. Some Aquarians might also decide to make a complete sort of like change and shift in terms of like physical appearance, and maybe you're going to start working on your body differently. You might change your looks. I wouldn't be surprised if some Aquarius risings would come into the world around the time of this new moon and say, here I am, like I look at like a totally different person, new hair, different, I don't know, style, different everything, appearance-wise. Pisces suns and Pisces risings. New moon, 9th of February, active 3 days before, 3 days after. This is happening in your 12th house. Oh, this is interesting. So I feel like you're going to be taking a new approach, Pisces, to your mental health, your spiritual life, and also the ways in which you used to sabotage yourselves without necessarily realizing. So I'm thinking of maybe habits, patterns that maybe involved escapism or addiction, or kind of like running away from certain parts of yourselves that you didn't necessarily want to connect with. You might start some sort of a process of learning, understanding, exploring, diving deep into your, for lack of a better word, into your shadow side, into your blind spots. This is likely to reset the way that you approach your mental health. So you might decide to kind of like take this a lot more seriously. You might also decide to put more effort into making sure that you are in a good, stable, steady place from a mental health perspective. And this might involve, for example, new habits in terms of sleeping, new habits in terms of eating, new habits in terms of the media that you consume, new habits in terms of the information that you consume in general. So it feels like you are kind of like doing a thorough cleanup around this time, my dear Pisces, in terms of what you ingest from an information perspective and from a mental kind of like perspective, because you might realize, hey, this is not all working for me. This is not all great. This is not all supportive of my mental health. It's actually causing things like anxiety, for example. You might also start working on yourselves behind the scenes, my dear Pisces, around this time. You could start kind of like learning something new, exploring a new topic, something that could be connected with the physical body, but also something that could be connected with health in general, health, food, nutrition, and generally the idea of acceptance as well as stability. You could also institute some sort of like new habits and new routines in terms of sleep, my lovely Pisces. Last but not least, I want to say that this new moon can bring some sort of a new, how should we call it? I'm going to call it relationship with institutions in your life, Pisces. Institutions are, for example, libraries, museums, hospitals, state institutions, government institutions. So you might start some sort of a new relationship, maybe in a behind the scenes way, with certain kind of like institutions. But you might also feel like you have to keep this to yourself, because if you talk about it, it can maybe, I don't know, impact in a negative way the connection with the institution. Last but not least, it is a new moon in Aquarius, so you might decide to join a group of people in a community of people who have similar interests and similar goals, maybe when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to connection with something higher and something that transcends the 3D reality. But you might also enter a community and a group of people that you can relate to, that you can resonate with, because maybe they have suffered in the same way that you have suffered, or maybe they have dealt with similar problems and issues that you have dealt with behind the scenes. And I am thinking of problems and issues that maybe involve topics such as addiction. Is this likely to be helpful? Massively, Pisces, for your health, mentally and emotionally. So I say, why not? Folks, I want to thank you for joining me. I want to thank you for tuning in. Please let us know in the comments how this new moon plays out for you. Also, remember that you can find me on Instagram at ruxunbelievable if you also want to follow me there. And if this content is useful, you can leave a donation using the thanks button underneath the video. If you want to work with me, a reminder that you can find me on my website. You can purchase my services only on my website. So my one-to-one personal readings, consultations, we do these live via Zoom. And you also get a recording if you would like me to record it. Of course, you're going to get the recording of our live session so that you can go back to it, so that you can refer to it. Where can you find me? On writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is writteninthestars-astrology.com. That is my website. Save it, pin it. It is also in the video description and in the pinned comment. Enjoy the new moon, and I will see you next time, folks. Thank you. Bye.